Welcome to Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. Well, we've had a lot to talk about over the last couple of days, and we got more to talk about today. The best way to describe what's going to be happening in terms of trying to relay the weather forecast information to you and what we see coming is there's a lot of certainty and there's a lot of uncertainty. And where the uncertainties lie will be basically for folks who are watching this podcast that live right along the Front Range of Colorado and Wyoming, right near the higher terrain where the Arctic air is going to be playing a cat and mouse game. We do have a Pacific trough that is coming in today and Thursday. We're going to have snow, especially in the mountains, today, tonight, into tomorrow morning. Colder weather will reach the plains. Going to be a really nice shot of snow in the high country of Wyoming and Colorado and parts of Utah and Idaho today and into tonight. But overnight tonight and tomorrow morning, there will be a little bit of snow on the plains, but nothing much. But this Pacific trough will bring in the colder air. It's not the Arctic air, but it will make it colder. Now, we're going to have an Arctic boundary for sure. We know the Arctic air is building and will be moving south out of Canada, but it's going to be playing cat and mouse with the region. It's going to move in, it's going to move out, and your altitude and where you are relative to the Continental Divide will dictate whether or not you get really cold, you get cold, then warm, then cold and warm again. We could have a lot of what I call weather whiplash, where some Front Range areas of southeastern Wyoming and northern Colorado and western Nebraska, 1 minute it could be 40. The next minute it could be 10 degrees. It could be that back and forth that we see with these Arctic boundaries when you're on the edge. And when you're on the edge of the Arctic boundary, you're also on the edge of where it's going to snow. Some of you will be very cold. Some of you will see temperatures go up and down. For your areas like the Dakotas, northern, central, and eastern Nebraska, Montana, the northeast counties of Wyoming, with a certainty, you're going to get the Arctic air. Everybody else on the edges are going to be on this back and forth. Now, we're getting some hints, and we're getting more confident that the cold air may deepen next week. We may actually see the coldest air arriving next week, and we'll show you why here in a moment. Here's the surface forecast chart for this morning. We've got this Pacific frontal boundary coming into northwestern Wyoming. This is moving along very quickly. So this is going to bring about an end to all the very mild air that's here right now. And we'll push that off to the east and be replaced by some Pacific air coming on in. So this is a nice little front. It's good news if you're a skier or snowmobiler, and it will help with the snowpack. But like all the other systems we've seen this winter, it's going to be moving through fast. And if we were to look at the upper level pattern, here it is. Nice looking trough. Here's the storm that's been banging into the northeast United States and the mid-Atlantic. That's going to continue to cause winter weather up there. This system is going to move along very quickly, and then we're going to see a change after that. This is the snowfall forecast through Saturday. We mentioned that the mountains are going to do really well, and they will here. So great snow for the mountains. There's going to be, you see this area right here? This is the snow that's going to be forming on the edge of the Arctic air. The Arctic air will be banked up here, and then moisture coming over it will make it snow in those areas. This snow could drift north, this snow could drift south based on what the Arctic boundary is going to do. Notice the snow hole here along the Front Range and eastern plains. This is because the Arctic air will either come in and it will snow more or go back out and snow more off to the north and east. So it's something we're going to have to watch here on a day-by-day basis. But this first salvo of moisture, definitely a good snow producer for the high country. Now, this is what the upper level pattern looks like by Friday morning. We have northwest winds aloft coming into the U.S. And you see the blue? This is basically your Arctic air mass right here. Really, really cold air here. We are going to see a penetration of the coldest Arctic air into the Dakotas and the upper Midwest by Friday morning, basically staying in this area right here, just off the Front Range. But going forward by Sunday morning, notice this blue area here actually drifts a little bit to the west, and what that will do is suppress the Arctic air to the southwest overnight Saturday into Sunday, leading to colder air getting further west along the Front Range. But notice the westerly flow here aloft. So the Arctic air is going to have a hard time getting south of I-70. in this particular setup, at least through Sunday morning. This will be how the temperatures unfold, and you can really see this cat and mouse game that's coming up. This is the temperature forecast relative to average for Friday afternoon. The green up here is basically showing where the Arctic air is going to be by Friday afternoon, and temperatures are close to normal, a little bit below normal here behind the Pacific cold front. This is by noon Saturday. So this is Friday afternoon, noon Saturday. Anywhere you see green or blue or purple, that's the Arctic boundary. And notice the Arctic boundary is very close and near the Continental Divide. Now notice, the Arctic boundary just gets to the Colorado border but does not drop into the Front Range. But look at the cold air on the north side of the Pine Ridge in Nebraska and South Dakota. And also notice the really, really Arctic cold up here, up in the eastern areas of Montana. Now, this is by noon Saturday. So Friday afternoon, Saturday morning. But look what happens by Sunday morning. It retreats. The Arctic air retreats Sunday morning back to the northeast. And temperatures, using Cheyenne as an example, actually go above average for Sunday morning, after going below average briefly Saturday afternoon. Also notice the colder air does spill into the lower elevations along the Front Range, but nothing that's too deep. The deep Arctic air is up here. As we get into Sunday afternoon, look, it comes back by Sunday afternoon, and the Arctic air makes a deeper penetration into northeastern Wyoming. Notice that west of the divide, the Arctic air doesn't get in. Look at Denver, look at Fort Collins, Colorado Springs. The Arctic air just doesn't get there. It's tantalizingly close, but we're right on the boundary. So you can see the fluctuations that are coming. You know, this is weather whiplash. This is where your temperatures can go below freezing very quickly. You can go up to 40 to 50 degrees very quickly and back and forth. Now, every time these Arctic boundaries move, there's going to be snow falling right along the Arctic boundary. So the snow is going to kind of migrate back and forth. But you're going to see that the best snow is going to be over and near that Arctic boundary, at least on the plains there. Northwest winds aloft will continue over this region, which will continue to pump snow up into the mountains. So we're going to see this cat and mouse game with the Arctic air mass going back and forth. Now, this is through the weekend, but something interesting is showing up on all of our forecast charts. There's some agreement. What happens next week is that this upper level low, this consolidation of Arctic air, takes place over the Dakotas and over Minnesota and south central areas of Canada. Basically, this is just a big pocket of bitterly cold Arctic air with the bullseye of the really bitter cold Arctic air right there. But there is a more westward push of that Arctic air west of the divide. Now, this is for Tuesday night into Wednesday. So what may happen is that Arctic air gets a bigger push to the west. So this is by Tuesday afternoon. You can see we've got 30, 32 degrees below normal temperatures. So these are temperatures that are going to be in the single digits and going below zero at night. This is for Tuesday. This is for Wednesday morning. Now notice, for you folks west of the Continental Divide, see the purple gets over? So if this happens, the cold air spills west of the divide. And when that happens, the cold air gets trapped here. And if you trap that cold air into those basins and valleys of Utah, western Colorado, western Wyoming, well, that's when you get the inversions. That's where the cold air gets trapped and could stay for the whole month of February if this happens. This is by Thursday morning. So notice how deep the Arctic air gets, even into places like Salt Lake City, even into places like Grand Junction. So it could be that the coldest of the cold is not until next week, at least for you folks west of the divide and for you folks along the Front Range of Colorado and southeastern Wyoming. If you were to look at the 10-day average of temperatures across North America over the next 10 days, with the exception of the desert Southwest, Canada, most of Canada and the United States has well below average temperatures. And you're going to see some possible record cold in this part of the country with this Arctic outbreak here in the coming days. Tomorrow, we'll have more details for you. We'll try to fine-tune the snow forecast a little bit, But there's a lot going on. If you're a weather watcher, it'll be fun to watch.